Okay, we're recording there. Man, check your headphones. And I think,
Oh, I hear you well.
Look at there.
Hey.
Ain't nothing like sounding professional.
It's sounding sexy over there. I don't want to be modest about the thing, but it's real.
Welcome to the first episode of the Hope Channel. I've got my brother Neil Donnell Ray here, and a lot of you folks will know him by Neil Donnell Ray. I don't know if he even, well, you know what I'm going to do now? Here's the thing. I've noticed and watched, especially me being an artist and being interviewed by other people, I cannot stand to have somebody interview me that knows all my history.
Okay.
Because all they're doing is sitting there listening. They already know it, so they're not engaged. So I'm gonna make a point when we have somebody in here. I'm gonna maybe read over their hot spots, see what they've done. But I'm gonna let them tell us who they are.
I think that's a good idea, Trey.
I
think it's a great idea.
And then we can interact with them, have a good time, learn something from them. And here's the thing about Neil, and we're getting outside of the Fayetteville circle, so I'm hoping and praying this thing's gonna get to a lot of folks that don't know who either one of us are.
Hey.
So we can, educate and introduce ourselves. But I've known Neil how long now, man? Over 20 years?
Very much, yes.
Over 20 years.
Yes.
And what I was going to say earlier is, y'all may know him by Neil Donnell Ray. A lot of you know about Neil Ray. I always refer to him as brother.
Appreciate that too, man.
Well, and there's a reason for that. Here's the thing. Like I said, we've known each other probably over 20 years. And man, I can say this honestly. Every time I've even been around you for 5 to 10 minutes, you're always trying to encourage somebody. And I've always noticed that. You're always trying to help somebody. You always got a game plan of how can I push this person to the next level. And it's always been about them more than it's been about you. And man, this fried me about, I don't remember when it was. It might have been a couple of months ago. But the first time I heard you sing, I was like, what? I didn't even know this dude could sing. I knew you could play, percussion and beat the drums and all that stuff, but I'd never heard you sing.
It shocks me sometimes too. It really does. I've had a history of working with various choral groups over the years, but I've never really thought about myself as much as singing, but I love to get up and sing in the mornings.
Well, man, I tell you, too, the reason, one of the biggest things that I saw there that night is your communication. And you had more of that on you than you did, throwing a lick here and there. I mean, your pitch was good and all that stuff, as far as the singer goes, was great. But I noticed you communicating. And that's why so many of our young artists these days, and other people that's not being sincere, they've lost that communication.
Yes.
And they can't understand why what they're trying to get across isn't going to the next level. But it's communicate. It's just like some of our real estate people and friends of mine, they always say it's location. But in the music industry and in the sales industry, it's communicating. And you've got to believe in what you're selling. But I've always noticed that about you, man. I've always noticed here's a guy that's, he's always trying to push the other person's envelope to the next level and help them. I don't think I've ever seen you upset.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you do, like we all do, but I've never seen a, what's the word? I've never seen a prideful thing on you. I've never seen a thing on you where it's, look at me, or, I mean, it's always been, even the other night when I came up to you, I think it was at Patty's.
Yes.
I'm thinking, man, how can we make this sound a little bit better? Let's put some verb here and blah, blah, blah. Think about that. But your deal is, just give me a microphone. I'll make it work with what I've got.
You might as well.
And that's awesome, man. I mean, that's the signs of a true leader, somebody who's just wanting to get the point across and use whatever tools they got and make it happen. And man, that's what I saw on you through the years. I did have somebody tell me a while back that you was in the military. I had no idea about that. Let the people know that don't know who Neil is. Let them give us a background of where you came from, what you've done, your military life, and some of those kind of things, so we can kind of get personal here with you.
Well, I want to thank everybody for taking the opportunity to be involved with the Hope Radio TV channel and all that good stuff. We're, this is the first episode, so I'm gonna be nervous a little bit. But anyway, I'm a Fayetteville native. I was born in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Actually, I was born on a house in Blunt Street with a midwife back in 1955.
Wow.
So I grew up here, went to school here, graduated Terry Sanford 1974. Wrote my first poem in the third grade, and I always enjoyed writing to that degree, reading more than writing. I read a lot of books, but writing was one of the areas I loved. And the first poem was Daniel Boone. It was about 12 lines, and it was published in the Weekly Reader.
What? At 3 years old?
At third grade.
Third grade. Wow,
yeah,
man.
Yeah.
That's
3 years
awesome.
old, I'd have been truly a prodigy. Somebody would say, "What's wrong with this guy?" So I enjoy doing that. Yes, I served the U.S. Air Force. I was a law enforcement specialist. I did only one tour, 4-year tour. Yeah. I got out and worked at a college for a while as a public safety officer, and I left that. And then I just started doing various jobs, everything from driving truck to high-rise window work to actually selling cemetery plots.
What?
Yes.
I didn't know that, man.
Oh, yeah. It was one of those wild,
awesome.
That was a wild moment, too, because...
Now, that would be hard to ever make that a positive job.
Yeah, but you get some really crazy responses. I remember what they gave you was this call list, and I remember one time I contacted this guy, and I said, "Yes, I'm calling from so-and-so Memorial Park," and he goes, "Yeah, me and the kids go out there every day and have a great time." I said, "You come out to the cemetery every day and have a great time?" He says, "Oh, I thought you was talking about the other park." It's like, awesome. Okay, yeah. All right, cool. Yeah.
Man, that's funny.
So,
man, I had a guy this was one of my first things I did in Nashville. When I was a kid, I won the Charlie Daniels Talent Roundup thing years ago. But it got me involved in the music industry and with people, and then I got involved in the Gaither Homecoming series stuff, and people know the Gaither videos, the Gaither Homecoming videos, but I had a friend of mine. Well, he was just one of the guys that was part of the group that was staying at the same place that a bunch of us artists were. Man, it's funny you said that, because we were talking that night about just a little bit of everything, and I don't even know how the conversation came up about burial and embalming and not nursing homes, but funeral homes and all that. And we was being serious. And I was sitting there talking to him. I said, "Man, you know what though?" I said, "Bro," I said, "people that's in that line of work." And I said, I'm not saying there's something wrong with them. I said, but every person like that I've been around, there's always been a kind of a dark side to them where they would just seem depressed all the time, and I said, really? I said, to think about it, man, you'd almost have to be out there on your own little flying saucer to do that for a living. And he was like, yeah, he said, it can be kind of tough sometimes. And then, bro, after I almost stuck my foot in my mouth, he said, now, hold on. I said, what's up? He said, before I was, even though I'm singing and I'm singing on this thing, he said, that is what I do for a living. I said, what? He said, yeah, man. He said, that's what I do. And he said, the thing is, he said, I get them ready for the casket. He said, I do all the stuff nobody else wants to do.
Hey, when we live in these crazy lives of ours, every one of us out here, one of the things that I've always been learning over the years is that we have so many wonderful people doing so many wonderful things out here, and they're doing it from the heart.
Yeah.
And that they're not looking for any basic reward. It's just the fact that there's another human being in need. They go and like you say, they go beyond the ideals of the race and the religions and the cultures. Yeah. There's another human being needs things, and that's one of the things what I've always enjoyed about getting the opportunity to work with you and the things you do, because you talk about my madness, and I've known you a long time. As a matter of fact, I was thinking earlier today as I got up this morning, and I was thinking about you, and I said, when I first met Trey, man, he was a great photographer, and he had this cool-looking motorcycle that he had built.
I forgot about that.
Oh, man, that was a classic. It was kind of retro, folks. You should have seen that thing. It was like, whoa. It was like a combination of 1950s combined with 2044. You know, I mean, Schwarzenegger looked good on that thing.
That's awesome.
But, you know, over the years, I've done poetry. I've been working with a lot of stuff here in Fayetteville. I've loved my community as a child. I always did. And I've always taken pride in it. You know, I used to run up and down Hay Street when I was younger, back during the Vietnam era.
Wow, man!
And,
so you've seen this place change from one thing to the other.
Really cool. I was really disappointed with the way it had gone between for a period, but I was also very happy to see that there was a revisioning, a restructuring of ideas, reinventing ourselves. And so that you know, you can call it Vietnam for a lot of people like to say that jokingly, but
yeah,
I remember when it was just one of those places where, and to show you how crazy it was, Trey, I could. It was the people were so young and there was so many people downtown. I could actually have my hair cut short, and for some reason get in with a group of GIs.
Yeah.
That, you know, I just befriended on the street. And they'd be going into bars, and nobody checked our IDs. We just all walked in.
Yeah.
They just all walked in, and they'd buy me beers and stuff like that. You know, so, yeah, I remember the madness of it all. I remember all that good stuff.
Enables you to be able to reach a lot of people.
Yes.
You know, instead of being, I can only, and that's one thing, too, and that's one thing I want to tell the people here that's listening to. That's one big thing that the Hope Channel is going to be about. We're not just focusing on jazz music because you've got jazz channels. We're not just focusing on blues music because you got blues channels. When you get into religion, we're not just talking to the Christians. We're not just talking to the Catholics. They all got their channels. We are concerned about people in general.
Yes.
And that's what this is going to be about.
Yes.
Because I've learned through the years that there's a lot of people out there that's been through tons and tons and tons of trauma, a whole lot worse than anything I've ever been through. But they didn't blame it on everybody else or everybody else's scenario. They picked themselves up, they turned their life around, and now they're making a change for other people. That's what this channel is going to be about.
Indeed, and you make a great point about that, Trey, because we want the folks to know, look, we live in that community where, there has been mass amounts of we talk about the trauma, the PTSDs, and the things like that. And we want them to understand, no, I think that word covers just beyond the military. It covers our first responders. Mm-hmm. It covers people working in hospitals. I mean, I couldn't imagine being a nurse at the North Carolina Burn Center. I could, those are the kind of things that get to you, or a teacher who has to work with kids who have emotional and behavioral needs and things like that. It's tough, and these folks go through a lot. Yeah. And we want to encourage them to let them know we thank you.
Yeah.
We love you for your efforts. We thank you. Please, please, please keep giving the love and heart, because you're blessing somebody every day. Every day. You may not even know it, but you're blessing somebody every day. That's a beautiful thing.
Well, man, I'll tell you, too, how big of a picture this is that me and you both are talking about. When I came out with my I Believed album, in fact, I did an interview with you.
Yes, we did.
When we first got that put out.
Yes, we did.
My next project after that one, which was started almost 4.5 years ago, was titled The Hope Project. And that's what all my artwork's been about for the last 5 years. Everything I've been talking about has been working on the Hope Project, the Hope Tour. So this has been in the making for a long time. And I tried to get it started a couple of times when I was in Nashville full time. But man, it just, even though the idea was there and I had plenty of artists there to work with, it just kept getting kind of put on the back burner and never was settled because it was missing something. Mm. When I got here and talking with you and Tess and other people and finding out, that what I was thinking about then, how it related to people here, it just like lights started going off. Thinking, man, this is a melting pot of people that's going through every kind of emotion you can think about.
Yes.
You got military guys that's come, and I've got great men. You talking about great friends that we have that's in the middle of it, that their job is horrible. So they have to not only deal with that themselves, but then they got a wife at home. Mm. that's having to deal with it. And then they've got a child at home that may not see their dad for 3 or 4 years that's having to deal with it. So this is definitely, bro, a place to where hope is the saving grace.
It has been.
I mean, it's just thing that this whole community can't live without.
It doesn't. And
Yeah.
It has that faith there. It's a community that because of its diversity, that makes us really unique in many forms and fashions, and it's something to be proud of. I mean, we can, we think about some of my friends as who are really deep on one side of politics or religion or things of that nature, but yet, I try to avoid a lot of the. Here's the thing with me a lot of times, and I get caught, and I should know better because, sometimes I let the alcohol do the talking.
Throw a piece of bait out there. Let's see if he'll grab it.
After I gotta say so. But one of the two things I always recognized about when it comes to the debate of politics and religion, and the two things is this: one, I don't know enough. And two, the person I'm talking with don't know enough. So, we're actually...
Bro, that is, golly, how many times has that happened?
It's actually creating...
How many times has that happened?
Yes.
Man, true story. In Nashville, I came out in the studio, walked across the street because I heard a ruckus going on. Man, I looked, from here to where the parking lot is outside, I'm on the corner of the street there. There's a bunch of young kids holding up signs, walking down the street, fixing to walk down to Broadway. I see this one kid running, trying to catch up to him. They're down the street from him, so he stops at the corner. I said, "Man, hold on a second." I said, "What are they protesting? What's this about?" He said, "Oh no, man." He said, "I'm gonna get down there and catch up to him. I need to be a part of it." I said, "But what are they He said, "Man, I don't know." I said, "Well, what are you supporting?" He said, "I'm just supporting my peeps." I said, "Man, you don't even know
what you're running to."
I thought that is a perfect example of talking with somebody who has no more information than you do, and y'all starting an argument about it.
Yes. It's like, really, please, okay, look, let's settle this comfortably by being quiet, and
Lord, that's funny.
Yeah, man, you run into a lot of the different dynamics of the things that when you travel around. I worked with the North Carolina Poetry Society for several years back in the 90s. I was chairman of membership development for 1998 and 99. And there was a gentleman by the name of Pete Peterson. I think I'm trying to remember. He always wore a baseball cap. And he was an elderly gentleman, 70s, 80s. And he would always talk about, and the classic thing is that as artists, when we run across people who don't see us sometime or a lot and they hear something of ours, one of the first things they may say is, "How long did it take you to do that?" Or "How long did it take you to write that?" Or play that?
Yeah.
And I remember he did a poem about that one time at a North Carolina Poetry Society meeting. And he talked about when he was 14 or 15 and he wrote his first poem and someone asked that question. Then here he was at 25 and he wrote another piece and somebody asked that question. And then he stopped writing for a few years and then I think it was about 50, in his 50s and so forth. He wrote some more, a book and so forth. Somebody said, "Oh man, how long do you take?" Keep asking that question. How long do you take you to do that? But in his 70s, when he was writing his last book, somebody brought the question up to him. And I remember he kind of looked at him and just said, "A lifetime."
Wow. Yeah.
It takes you a lifetime sometimes to recognize who you may be.
Right.
That means there's a learning process in there.
Yeah.
A learning process, even when I was working with this church one time, and they said, everybody needs to get reborn. Yeah. And the thought came to me. I said, well, if you're being reborn, then you're a child again. So your first year is as a first-year infant. So everything is growing from infancy to adulthood. And in the course of that time, you learn yourself better.
Sure.
In the first few years, you're full of the fire and everything like that. But as the years come on, you mature enough to understand what a message is and where you fall in line to that message.
Bro, and that was the real basis of Christianity. It's a relationship. just like me and you have. You know, you get to know that person the more you're around them, the more you study them, you know, it becomes a relationship. It's not an overnight deal. And I don't know how many times me and you've talked about artists who can't see past themselves.
Yes.
You know, it's all about them on the stage. How do I look? Blah, blah, blah. How do you know, and that's part of it. I mean, you want to look your best and be your best. But until you realize everything that you're doing, it's just like us doing this show. This show ain't about us. It ain't about me and you. It's about the people we're trying to influence. It's about the people we're trying to help. And when an artist recognizes that, that's when their whole world changes.
So